Okay, recording is in progress. Hello, everybody. Daryl Snyder, Brandon Abbey, Sportstopia.io, and Fantasy Sports Logic. And we have a contributor to both. R.C. Fischer provides one of the daily data projection feeds into the Contrarian Edge Optimizer for football. He is the author of Fantasy Football Metrics, ffmetrics.com, and involved in the industry about 10 years ago. He decided to take the plunge from his job and follow his passion. So we're excited about having him here. He's going to share today in what I don't know if this will stay the name, but kind of catchy. It's the today Monday Night Football picks from somewhere near RC's back pocket podcast. That's a lot of words, but that's kind of how he's labeled it. Although there has been some really great information. Welcome, RC. Great to have you with us.
Good to be back.
Thank you. This is a Monday with two games. The second Monday in a row where I think it started out because there's a lot of money with the networks, right? And they look to figure out who can get the viewership, but they both have a couple of good games. There's Cincinnati at home with Joe Burrow trying to not go 0-3 against the surprising Rams. I think have overperformed. Maybe they're just that good, and last year they weren't. Stafford playing well, and then the other game just as desirable. And you and I have green on because maybe it's the Eagles type of night. They're traveling down to Tampa Bay against Baker. I've resurrected my career Mayfield, who seems to be performing like maybe he was expected coming out of college. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Why not maybe you touch on yesterday, a few points scored by the Dolphins and some other teams, and maybe tell us what your thoughts were on that, and then we'll dive into tonight's fun activities.
First of all, I think we're wearing green because it's time to collect money night in DFS. Secondly, the last time
Nothing to do with the Eagles?
Nothing to do with the Eagles, all about to do with my back pocket where my wallet resides.
There you go. See, people are thinking that was something else.
I got to extend the name.
Somewhere near his wallet podcast. I like that.
Somewhere near his back pocket where his wallet resides. So
You're
now
pulling
it's going to
him
be
out of
even
your
longer.
wallet.
Right. Secondly, the last time we were together on a podcast, the DFS results were pretty good. I don't want to brag or jinx it or anything, but
Ronnie Bill,
we're on a Lou Gehrig hit streak here. We got to keep up. As far as Sunday activity, as it might bleed into what we would think about tonight's games, it looks like the pattern continues that the teams are getting more in sync. They're getting better. From week one was like a practice scrimmage where the offenses were a disaster and were far behind the defenses, and it resulted in you could see it in all the fantasy scoring. Just a mere 2 weeks later, we're now reversed where the offenses are on fire and the defenses can't tackle anybody, especially in Denver. And the better teams I've seen on tape,
I think it was the altitude in Miami.
I don't know what's going on with that. It's great Sean Payton coaching. It's a great spend of money by them. The teams that I've seen on tape played really well on Sunday, and the teams that are notoriously good that we would have all suspected that have the veteran court, like a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, the elite quarterback offenses got another step better and are punishing their opponents. So I think stable quarterbacks, high level quarterbacks going into tonight that have shown well on tape these first 2 weeks and are just known to be good, um, probably rule the night tonight. And I don't know which one of the games you want to hit on first, but I think that's my overview of that is the guy, a Jalen Hurts. The Eagles are probably more in line to take a step forward tonight, and the Rams are probably more in line to take a step forward tonight if what we've seen overall on Sunday holds true into Monday.
Yeah, I would agree with you on one side. I don't know the Bengals 0-3. If that happens, there's really, I think, a lot more of a problem. And maybe, I mean, Burrow's already come out with, he's not healthy 100%. But so part of me thinks it could be a Chase type evening. I'm a little leery of him getting off. He can bust a slate. It could be a Mixon where I've seen him fall into the box a few times and totally nuke a slate. I like the Eagles call. I think, you got AJ and Devontae and Goddard and against, I mean, if you wouldn't know that the Tampa Bay's 2-0 with Mayfield going into that game, I think it's 5 points. Tampa Bay's getting at home. I know they have one of your favorite of all time running backs, Mr. White, in the backfield. So let's touch on Joey B in that game first. Cincinnati and those surprising Puka Nakua led Rams.
There are reports coming out that Burrow's going to be good to go. I've, relatively speaking tonight, that information on that has bounced back and forth to he's not going to be able to play to maybe to now he is, and then back again, round trip on all those things. We don't know how much the team is putting out to try to head fake the opponent, I guess. But if I had to bet, I'm going to say that Burrow is probably going to play. Watching him in practice, he can stand upright, not move around a bunch, and toss a football. He could throw, screen passes and bubble screens and hand it off to Joe Mixon as well as Browning can. If there's any heat on Burrow or if he has to take off running, if he's not, but if he gets put into a position, he could pull that thing and he's done for the night and maybe for the next 4 weeks. So it's a precarious position. If the Bengals lose tonight, their season's probably over because it means Burrow's calf is worse than anybody can imagine. So there's some push for him to play because this is it. And it's a tough opponent. So I think he's going to give it a go, but I don't know that it's going to be anything all that great. It's going to be a statue back there throwing short timing passes, which is what he tried to do the first 2 weeks of the season, and it didn't really go that great. So we get Burrow, but I think we get him on a bit of a limited basis, which means he can throw bubble screens to Jamar Chase. If I'm the Bengals, I have a minimum 10 bubble screens to Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase looks like he's the least interested player in playing football that I think I've seen play so far this year. So hopefully he shows up and realizes he's probably the key to victory or loss for the Bengals because Burrow cannot hang back in the pocket and let him run deep routes and wait for him to get open. They're going to have to stay short with him with the occasional timing bomb, but I think it's going to be a short game to to Chase, and it'd be hard pressed to get to T. Higgins unless it's a lot of short, sweet stuff. But that's not T. Higgins's game per se. For fantasy purposes, you're not going to get T. Higgins catching a short pass and then he takes off and runs past 10 people for a big play. So you could get a little bit out of that out of Tyler Boyd. But Jamar Chase, I think this whole night hinges on Jamar Chase, which for fantasy purposes, for DFS purposes, makes it interesting. He's going to be the captain or bust in fantasy games tonight, to be a little different off of going off of Puka or Hertz or AJ Brown or whoever else seems to stick out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a mix, and that's why I keep thinking, I think Mixon's gonna have to take the lead on screens, or just, the Rams, the 49er game, Debo got off well, and Kyrene Williams, he had a game against the 49ers, so you got that side of the ball that we're gonna talk about next. But the Rams, I'm favoring the other side of Puka. I think everybody's going to be on Puka. He's a little dinged up too, and I think Tutu Atwell could be someone that Stafford, and then you've got Higbee tight end. So is there a reason I shouldn't be looking at Tutu and should stay focused on Puka, or what's your thoughts on the Ram side of the ball?
The Rams have looked like the best offense in the NFL through the first 2 weeks of the season, most efficient, best acting. Um, and I've seen 2 games of Puka doing the same exact thing over and over again and nobody covering him. And when teams finally started, San Francisco started to put someone on him one-on-one later in their game, and that's when you started to see Puka drop passes, not be open as easily available to Stafford. So I think if an opposing team just put someone on him one-on-one to hassle him off the snap, his numbers are going to get cut in half. NFL teams are, you would think it's the easiest thing to see, and they're spending 24 hours a day studying tape, and they have a cot in their office that they're sleeping in, and they're watching all this tape, and then they do absolutely nothing what you would expect them to do, what the obvious thing to do would be. So I would hope that the Bengals would have a plan for Puka, but it's definitely not a guarantee. But even if they don't, the way that Tutu Atwell is playing, he's independent of all of that. I mean, it could be, more targets for Tutu, but he's playing great regardless of that. So I think Tutu, probably for the money, is going to be a better play. People don't believe in Tutu. People want to believe the rookie fairy tale and sugar plum fairies dancing in their head about rookies, and they don't care about third year and fourth year players who didn't excite them the way they expected as rookies. So people don't believe in the Tutu story, but I think he's become, shockingly so, a very legitimate wide receiver, one of the best looking wide receivers I have seen this season. I would say better than Puka, because I mean, all respect to Puka, he's doing the same exact thing over and over again, running a little inside slant in against a zone with nobody around him, and Stafford throws him a 5-yard pass and he catches it. That's great. That's great that he's getting 27 of those a game. But what Atwell is doing is getting downfield, getting open, making tight catches, tough catches, tight windows, diving catches. I mean, I don't know that he's even missed a pass this year. His missed targets have been him catching the ball near the sidelines, but then either the pass was was leaning out of bounds, or he couldn't get his toes down. to stay in bounds. I mean, I am blown away by what Tutu Atwell is doing. So I'm all about him this game. And I gotta believe if they start taking Puka away, even some, just the odds are that Tyler Higbee if the Rams are going to score 3 touchdowns in this game, Higbee's got to have one of them tonight, I would think. He's just overdue for that to happen. So I like Higbee, especially with the limited tight end offerings that we have tonight.
What's your before you touch on a former Notre Dame running back? Speaking of a great team that had a disappointing ending Saturday, we won't touch on that because I start crying again. Kyrene Williams, what do you think? The guy out of Acres looks like it's his show. He's looks dual threat, right? Running and receiving out of the backfield. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, he's the new age of NFL running back, and I did not like him scouting wise coming out of Notre Dame. He looks this year way better than I've seen him in his pro journey, or even watching him on tape in college. He was always a try hard, big effort guy, and that's great. But that usually gets you crushed in the NFL, and it did last year. But he looks much faster, way more confident. They're not gonna stop that train. He's gonna get heavy targeting, and he's gonna run enough to keep a defense honest. He's the new. It's like the Pittsburgh Steelers last night. The NFL in a couple years is going to be filled with multiple Jalen Warrens in people's backfield, cheap Jalen Warrens, and they are going to not care a whit about big old Najee Harris who can knock over a pile supposedly, and has to be drafted in the first round and is going to crack pads and he's going to break the will of the defense. What the Rams are doing in 2023, I think Sean McVay could be the coach of the year already. Um, they're doing kind of like a Moneyball version of the NFL, where most of the NFL head coaches want to get a big back, they want to impose the will, they want to control the time of possession. The Rams have completely remade themselves, and they're like, we're just going to get little scat back running backs and we'll line them up. You heard them. We'll put the next one up that you can't even tell the difference on, and all we want them to do is just run straight ahead until there's something in their way and then fall down. Then we'll get to the next play. They got to be good pass catchers, and we're just going to play the greatest show on turf part 2, and we're going to lean into fast-paced, speedy passing game where everybody else is wanting to control a big run game. So within that, Kyren Williams is very dangerous weapon, as he has been for the first 2 weeks.
Any injuries on either side of the ball? I mean, defensive back wise on either side that could open it up for any of these receivers, any defensive linemen or offensive linemen?
One quick wrinkle about the backfield is you cannot have Kyren Williams taking 20, 30 touches in a game. He's going to end up getting broken or worn out too fast. The perfect storm for the Rams would be to have 2 of these guys doing the same things and splitting up the workload. I think the surprise player of the night tonight is going to be Ronnie Rivers, who's very
I like it. Another
much,
Ronnie.
yeah.
Ronnie last week, Ronnie this week.
Yeah, I don't want to keep going to the Ronnie well, but this is maybe the last Ronnie we have in the NFL to work with. I I
Is he
think
related to the quarterback, Mr. Rivers? I heard has 10 children now and maybe getting back into football just to take a
if
break.
you saw a picture of them side by side, you would not confuse them as being related.
More like, okay.
Um, so
Maybe Ronnie Bell, he's related, a
yeah,
brother from another mother named
yeah.
Ron. Okay.
So I think he's going to get a surprising, if there's one running back in either one of the games that gets a surprising amount of touches tonight, it's going to be Ronnie Rivers.
So
And
he
to the
could be a
point,
showdown. He could be a showdown dart. I've circled him. If any of you other potentially millions of people are watching that are going to play showdown, just let me try him out to see if he's going to work this week, and you can use him next week. But I like that dart. Brandon jotted him down. I saw that. I like it. I like it. Okay.
on the injury side, in both games, it's a pretty clean game at this point. There's no, the most major injury is an Eagles slot corner that's been lost for the season last week. Other than that, most everybody is back healthy on the O line, secondaries, for the most part.
Nice. I forgot I let you get off of yesterday's, but you're the best 0-2 team that you thought through eyeball is now 1-2, and they knocked off somebody that no one thought had a chance of being knocked off going there. What, you didn't make a comment about your best 0-2, 1-2 team now that you think is so well coached, and it obviously was under display yesterday.
They should be 3-0. They should be in first place in the NFC East. They're the best team in the NFC East, and they proved it yesterday. So I think they're better than the Eagles. They just showed that they're better than the Cowboys. I am completely stunned that they went out and they didn't beat the Cowboys. They whooped the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, up until this point, the best three teams I think I've seen on tape coming into the week 3 slate would have been the Dallas Cowboys #1. Both sides of the ball looked like unstoppable. The Rams might be the second best team I've seen, and
Is Arizona in the West or the East?
in the
They're in the
West.
West.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
playing
So,
San Francisco this
Or
week.
yeah, did I say East? They're the
yeah,
best
yeah,
team.
yeah.
They used to be, when I say that, they used to be in the East. So I put that, I threw that little disclaimer out there that if they were back in the East, they would be the best team. They're better than Dallas, better than the Eagles. And then Arizona's the third best team I've seen, and maybe the most impressive just from the energy and the lack of name talent that they are able to pull off. That they were the better team than Washington week 1, and they lost it late. They were clearly the better team than the Giants in the first half, and really it was kind of a lucky Giant. I mean, credit to the Giants, but the Giants kind of stumbled their way back into that. And that's why I thought, man, this Cardinals team is plucky, but I don't know that they're going to be able to beat, if they're going to face Dallas, if they're going to break down against the Giants, they certainly aren't going to be able to handle the Cowboys. They went in and stomped them from the opening whistle. And then I thought, well, are they going to collapse in the second half? Is Dallas going to gin up and go get them? Nope, they just continued to pound them in the second half. So
A lot of
I
energy. The defense was, I mean, they were inspired getting in the face of Prescott and then Dobbs. I mean, I think the first play I saw was he took off and ran about 60 yards or something. I mean, I know the Cowboys were minus Diggs, and everybody's like, he was kind of a heart and soul. Like Parsons is there, but they were missing some other people too. I saw that. I don't know how critical, and I don't want to make excuses, but
well, the Cardinals are missing an entire team because nobody knows who plays for them. I mean, think about the state of the NFL when the Arizona Cardinals can go out and cut all of their high payroll players, save a few, bring in a bunch of cheap free agents all along the defensive line and linebacker group, and they have corners that I didn't even think were going to be in the NFL, and what was thought to be a battered offensive line, and then their quarterback came to them 2 weeks before the season was going to start in a trade from the Browns. They took that collection of players and have one of the 10 best teams in the NFL
So
in that fast of
getting-
order. And
they're
it's
getting-
none of it's luck. None of it's like, oh, sloppy fumbles or they did this or that. They are just going out and whooping teams.
So are they taking the whooping to Santa Clara this week? They're getting 14 points.
I'll be taking the 14 points. I mean, if they go beat San Francisco, that would be that's asking a lot. But if they do, you have to say that they might be the best team in football. If you beat Dallas and San Francisco in back-to-back weeks,
That's pretty big.
and you could have
Yeah,
won
that's
your
a lot
first
of
two
points.
games.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that is, and again, I think that coach, I saw the sidelines. I mean, he's got those guys believing and fired up. So watch the movement on that line. I gotta think it comes down. I mean, double digits, 2 touchdowns. I know the 49ers are the 49ers, but I
And
saw
people
some.
still good.
No, I mean, I saw Prescott and Lamb. I mean, Pollard, Dallas wasn't missing anything on the offensive side, and they didn't. I kept thinking, like you, they're going to get some momentum every time they got a little bit going. It's like Smash Mouth from Arizona just like knocked them back, and they stumbled back, and then they never really in the game. I mean, they got behind, and then they tried to. I think at one time I saw them. They might have got within 7 or 4, but then Arizona. Rondell Moore took off and about a 50 yards, just like Dobbs. I mean, it was just like, it's crazy.
And
but
Arizona went into that game, the one defensive player people would have some respect and recognize, only one of them is Buda Baker, and he missed that game. He's hurt. So you take that plucky team that's found a way to lose its first 2 games, you take away its defensive leader, its heart and soul, the only recognizable really defensive player that they have, you take him away, and they just go out and manhandle the Cowboys, who have manhandled everybody. The Cowboys didn't just beat teams coming into this, they crushed teams coming into this. So now you have
you
to
got to
go
look
back.
at though, and but if we go backwards, Cowboys manhandled the Giants, right? And then they manhandled the Jets, but you saw the Jets. I don't know if we can count the Jets, that offense. But yes, right. So,
But it's a Jets team that pulled off a win against Buffalo, who have now gone out and manhandled a bunch. So I know the Jets aren't good with Zach Wilson, so it does make you question Dallas. But when you see teams like Dallas go out and just obliterate opponents that they should, and doing it statistically the way that they do it, you're like, okay, this team's really hitting on all cylinders. You're not going to want to mess with this team. So you figure Arizona's going to be the next one in there, that they're going to mow down. Um, for Arizona to go into that and just completely handle them on both sides of the ball is amazing. And the afterthoughts of the game is why I will take Arizona in the 14, is because Dallas is running around like we're embarrassed. There's zero credit for what Arizona has done and what they did in that game. It's all, this is embarrassing. How could you lose to Arizona? Oh, look at the, Sports Center or whatever. Could you believe Dallas lost to Arizona? Arizona's trying to tank this season. They're terrible. Um, the Arizona is really good. But the team that's going into week 4 line setting is everybody thinking Arizona stinks, and they just won a lucky game. So now certainly they're going to get crushed by the San Francisco 49ers. I I could go back to the San Francisco 49ers and go, I still, just like we talked about Thursday, I still don't know if the 49ers are as good as everybody thinks. They beat the sad broken down Giants via help of penalties, extending drives the entire night for San Francisco. The Giants were stopping multiple third down plays of the 49ers, only for there to be a flag and then extend the drive. to the point that the Giants just couldn't hold it off any longer. They beat the Steelers, who are one of the worst looking teams in the league. And then the one team San Francisco did play that's talented is the Rams, and the Rams should have put 30 on them and had a chance to beat them and played toe to toe with them. I would argue the Rams played just as good or better. So I'm not saying San Francisco's terrible. I'm just not, just like we put Dallas on top of Mount Olympus a little too fast, we might be going there with the 49ers as well. And then we think that Arizona's the, stuff on the bottom of your shoe. I don't think that's true either. So I will be taking 14 points all day long.
Okay, well, great. I knew I'd get you fired up about that one. Let's shift over to the Eagles. Mr. Hurts, Brown, Devontae, Goddard, a pretty stout defense that's had a little bit of issues going into what could be, given 5, Mayfield. I would imagine that the crowd's going to be pretty excited in Tampa Bay for what's happening down there. So start on the, you said there's a slot out. So let's look at Mayfield, what he's been doing. Played Minnesota, beat them, which they haven't won a game. They managed to, even though the Chargers made one of the craziest calls to go for it on 4th down on their own 30 something. The Vikings still found a way to lose that game, but
Yeah,
what do you think about?
Might have a new
What?
coach today if that didn't they didn't win that game, the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, it was a typical San Diego, right? I messaged you. I'm going, that's typical San Diego. They find ways to lose, right? The end of the
Yeah.
game, and fortunately, the tip pass fell into the arms. But you got Baker. Looks like he's fired up. He may have found a home. He's got a couple of good receivers. About a running back you like. What do you think about that side of the ball with Tampa Bay tonight?
I'm liking any thoughts of Tampa Bay less and less as this week goes on. Tampa Bay, if you think Minnesota's not very good, Tampa Bay should have lost to them by 2 scores easily week 1. That was maybe the single luckiest team in one single game I've seen this season was Tampa Bay week 1 against Minnesota. I mean, everything that could have gone right went right. And they had supposedly stole the signals and knew the plays that were coming from Minnesota, all of that, and they still had to go down to the last second to win that game. I've watched, and then of course they get Chicago week 2, which Chicago is now pulled into the lead for the worst team in the NFL. So Tampa Bay should be 1-1 with no quality wins. They don't look good to me on tape, especially on offense. That team is going to face a little bit healthier Philadelphia defense because Bradbury is back. The D line is certainly stout for Philadelphia. The offensive line of Tampa Bay is arguably one of the worst in the league, if not the worst in the league. Is a bad matchup, I think, for Tampa Bay tonight. They should go heavy with Rashad White, but he's not had anywhere to run against Minnesota and Chicago. So I can't even imagine he's going to have anywhere to run against Philadelphia. This is just, Tampa Bay is the type of team that when they're equally matched with like a Chicago or a Minnesota, if things go their way, penalties go their way, a turnover goes their way, they could sneak out of there with a win. But if they play a real team who's playing well, they're going to get their doors blown off. And I think if the Eagles follow the pattern of what a lot of the other top tier teams have done over the last couple of weeks, just getting better, more in sync on offense every week, this could be a drubbing by the Eagles tonight.
What's your call on Tampa Bay's defense? I know they haven't played offensive wise, but they've always been stout up front. That'd be another reason I don't like White. I think they're going to force Mayfield to throw it to either Evans or Godwin, maybe Otten. But Tampa Bay's defensive side of the ball seems to be pretty solid, you think? Or
They're up and down. Some weeks you watch them and you're like, wow, is this the best defense in the NFL? On one series, then you watch them the next series and they're covering the wrong guy. They left somebody wide open. They blitz when they shouldn't, and or the other team picks it up and they get exposed. It's a good run defense. Um, I'm not as hyped about the Eagles' run game for tonight, but I think Hurts is in a different class. He can run on anything. Doesn't have to do with the defensive offensive line matchups. And then
I think
Hurts
I
should
said
be able
White.
to
I meant
Devin
Swift.
White. Oh,
Well, no, I mean, on Eagles, you got the typical, you got Gainwell and you got Swift, and so they'll
yeah,
be
I don't
going
know.
against Tampa Bay. White would be coming back against the Eagles, who have a stout defense as well. So,
I wouldn't.
um,
I don't trust either of these running games against the opposing defense. So I would be more inclined to think this is more of a Hurts has to run night. This is more of a Hurts has to pass night. You can pass more effectively against Tampa Bay. And then what we've seen the last time we watched the Eagles play with the whole AJ Brown minor blow up on the sidelines, this will
yeah,
probably be an AJ Brown night.
give me the
It's too
ball.
yeah, it's too simple to say that, except for every time it happens when wide receivers start jawing and mouthing off, they instantly get all the targets to shut them up. So I would be taking AJ Brown over Devonta Smith tonight, but I mean Devonta Smith can have a fine night as well. Cade Otton, the Cade Otton matchup with the Eagles' inability, with their terrible linebackers and inability to cover the tight end, is a legit play, but I don't know. It's not like Baker's going to drop back, have a lot of time to see his tight end leaking out, and they just do a Mahomes to Kelsey thing all night. I'm sure Otton will get his, a good amount of catches. He's not going to get shut out because it is a good matchup, but I don't know that Tampa Bay can really expose anything of the weakness of their opponents because their offensive line is so rough. It seems to me that Tampa Bay, by their own listening to their offensive coordinator speak about it, they're going to run Rashad. The best bet, if you were going to bet one thing tonight, you should bet the prop bet of the over of Rashad White's carries, which I think was 14.5 when I bet it on Saturday. If Rashad White will get 17 to 20 carries, maybe for 17 to 20 yards rushing, but they're going to stick with it. They're very committed to the opposite of what the Rams are. They think that if they just keep running it, they're going to stay close. They're going to wear down the defense so that they can really take advantage of it in the second half, which they have had some success doing with Minnesota and Chicago. But I think they're going to but they've been able to get the lead on those teams too and play that way. I think if Tampa Bay gets behind, this could fall apart fast. Baker does not look great to me. He's plucky. I like him. I hope he does well, but what I see on tape is a guy that just flirts with tries to force the ball into way too many places. And if they get behind, Baker's going to do that more and more. The Eagles defense tonight, to me, of all of the defenses, is the ticket. If unless you take the Rams as a bet that Burrow doesn't play, or that within 2 series Burrow can't go, or that
I
Burrow
like
just
it.
can't really do much this in the evening.
Any Ronnies on either one of those teams?
There's not a Ronnie, but there's a Ronnie like the one from the back pocket on the Tampa Bay side, the one playmaker I bet that is going to wide receiver that's going to line up in a 3 wide receiver set, and I'll bet Tampa Bay is going to have to throw a lot more than they expect going into this game. Everybody knows Evans and Godwin, and I say that from the Eagles defensive side. So Bradbury and Slay are going to go on to them. The receiver that they start in the slot is Devin Tompkins, and he might have a little bit better night than usual because the Eagles are using a backup slot receiver. But Devin Tompkins only plays in the slot sometimes. When they want to push the passing game, they'll bring in Trey Palmer, and Trey Palmer is the one that could have the bombs away long touchdown tonight, where he gets covered by the backup slot corner working in the slot, but he doesn't really operate like a slot. He operates like a deep ball guy. He could take his backup slot corner deep and beat him by 5 yards, and Baker plant one on him for a long score.
I think one of the Palmers scored for the Chargers yesterday, a similar type receiver, right? I don't know if they're related, but
the Trey Palmer was pretty nice in the preseason. He's already scored a touchdown this season, a shorter touchdown. I think he had the first touchdown of the Buccaneers season. He's only playing about half the snaps or less. He rotates in and out with Tompkins, but he's the X factor. If there's going to be a shocker, I think it'll be Trey Palmer.
Brandon, you're looking at the optimizer, I can tell. What's the price of either Palmer or they're in 2 different games, so I like it. A dart. Palmer would be Tampa Bay receiver, and that if you have to look at the showdown, not the classic, because they're going to be different.
Palmer $600.
$600. I like the $600 from R.C.'s wallet there in the back pocket. What's the other one?
Well, you also mentioned Tompkins. He's $200. So you can put together some pretty stout.
And Tompkins is a player, and he's in their return game, and he could have a return game score potentially. But he's a good, if this game devolves into Tampa Bay having to throw more because the run game isn't working, then we could see more action to Tompkins, with Evans and Godwin taking the good Eagles corners downfield, clearing out space for little dink throws to Devin Tompkins, and try to let him be their gadget guy to make things happen. And he's a good receiver with a return man's skill set. And then Trey Palmer can do some of that too, but Trey Palmer's bigger and can be an all-over threat. And he seems to be more the one, even though Tompkins starts, Palmer seems to be the one that plays more snaps, sees more action in the passing game.
I like those 2. I'll sprinkle those in. How much is Ronnie Rivers as a running back in the other game, Brandon?
Let me check that right quick.
Rams.
Wasn't very expensive, I don't believe. $2,400.
Ooh, he's a little more. But that might scare some people away if they go to the Chiron choice. So
less than 1% owned, however. So,
1%?
Yeah, right around 1%.
Probably all 3, huh?
Some of the stats aren't in. I think he'll probably end up around 4 or 5% owned.
I like that. Probably 95% ahead of the field. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left.
Well, then I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
One of our subscribers, and this is a little off track, RC, but he's in one of those survivor deals, and he has picked Baltimore.
Tell him not to take Dallas.
Yeah, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Detroit the first 3 weeks. So right now he's looking at Minnesota, the Chargers, San Francisco, Kansas City is taken into the 4th week.
Let me get on the 4th week schedule just so I can be up to speed. I'm stuck in week 3 mode still.
Okay.
And as a disclaimer, just so I can be held not liable, I picked the Dallas Cowboys in my survivor pool play last week, or Sunday. So don't listen to me, but give me those teams again that he's looking at.
Vikings, Chargers, 49ers, and Kansas City.
Well, we know a little bit about what the 49ers are facing.
Yeah.
I'd be all in with Kansas City to beat the Jets. The Chargers are facing, where are they? The Chargers are facing Las Vegas, which is probably favorable, especially if Jimmy G's going to be out. But Las Vegas actually has talent, and I don't know if I can trust a Brandon Staley team to win 2 games back to back as far as I could throw it. But it's possible. I wouldn't have any problem if somebody played that. If Garoppolo was there after them getting humiliated on national TV, and the Chargers being the Chargers, I'd have a slight twinge of concern on that. But I mean, the Chargers are definitely the play. And then we got Minnesota facing Carolina. I would only want to bet against Carolina if Bryce Young is at quarterback. Andy Dalton at quarterback is a bit of a safety net that scares me. I thought they might pull off a win against Seattle. It was making me nervous because I've got so much vested in Carolina under 7.5 wins this year. So Carolina is mildly dangerous with Andy Dalton. They're a complete rollover if Bryce Young's playing, but I don't know that he's going to play.
Yeah, I think the Thielen Hurst Dalton combos, they're all veterans that kind of helping each other, so that makes it a different game.
The Jets are so bad, and Kansas City is subsequently so good, especially on defense, that the offense doesn't have to carry as much of the weight as they normally would. You would think that the 49ers are going to win, but I would just say of all of these 4 nominees, the team that's playing a legitimate team, that this should be a showdown of 3-0 teams, is San Francisco. So yes, they should win. They're the more experienced veteran team, and I believe they're at home.
Yes,
But
they are at home.
I'll just keep saying it, as I've said every week, be very wary of Arizona. This is a really good football team, not to be taken as lightly as they are taken in all circles, even still by the Dallas Cowboys, who think that it was their fault that they lost, that it was just a mental letdown. They're not giving Arizona any satisfaction for being a good football team.
Yeah, so overall your pick would be Kansas City over the Jets.
Yeah, and I'm a when I'm playing Survivor, just for me, I take whatever the best thing is on the table. If it's head and shoulders above, and I don't really care about, well, I want to save that team for late. Survivor for me is I got to get through this day, and then I'll worry about next, because you never know what quarterback injury or whatever is going to pop up to give you a great Survivor play out of the blue. So I'll take all the best and obvious things early. So I would take Kansas City as my number 1 choice there. I wouldn't get mad at anybody taking the Chargers. Wouldn't, if Garoppolo's out, wouldn't get mad at anybody taking Minnesota if Bryce Young is in. If Bryce Young is in, Minnesota may be the bet of the year because Minnesota's not that bad. They're better than being 0-3.
Yeah.
But the 49ers of the group are the ones that are playing a real team.
All right.
Well, I'll add into that, and I'm not in. I was in a Survivor that I sent you, and somehow the technology for the picks didn't get me in. But just like yesterday, what you said, RC, kind of look at where everybody's going, and I guarantee you a high percentage are going to be on the 49ers. So if you try to stay away from that game like yesterday's, where you know it's going to probably take a lot of people out, and you go to the next best, then I would definitely avoid the 49ers for that reason. Because you want it almost, then you're rooting for that not to have, for the 49ers to get beat. And I mean, come on, 80% of the people are going to be on that game or more, right? They're going to be like, that's probably the best matchup for the 49ers. So Kansas City, there's no way the Jets stay in there. They can't keep up with them offense. I mean, there's no way.
When you're facing the worst quarterback that's going to start in week 4, when you're facing probably the worst offensive line that's going to start in week 4, and Kansas City doesn't have any letdown on either side of the ball, to me, it's just way too lopsided to see anybody that's shocked that Arizona beat Dallas. I mean, I'm shocked, but I'm not totally surprised. I would be unbelievably shocked if the Jets were to beat Kansas City.
Yeah.
Straight up.
I don't know how they do. I mean, really,
I mean, unless it's going to rain, unless there's a tropical storm coming through, there's little hope.
Well, thank you, RC. It's been good. We gave some bonus Survivor pool picks via Brandon. So appreciate you. We'll see you again Thursday if we can get you back out. We'll be able to find out. I like the Ronnie Rivers, Trey Palmer, and sneak in a few Tompkins in the showdown slate. And I'm going to lean towards, you got me looking at that Eagles defense. I kind of like the run back, just hoping that somehow, some way, the Tampa Bay defense scoop and score or a interception touchdown, but the Eagles could lay 35 or 40 on them and totally annihilate that defensive touchdown anyway. So love it. Appreciate you being here. Gonna get this this baby posted. We've graduated. We're on the Sportstopia YouTube channel now, so I'll give you that link as soon as I
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get it. Post it on Twitter. I'll be messaging tonight when Ronnie goes off, like I did last week. Ronnie, we chanting Ronnie. If this happens, or when it happens, you're gonna have to really search hard to find a Ronnie for Thursday's game.
Little did we know when Ronnie Bell scored that touchdown, what that was going to lead to in the DFS contest, and just a few scant hours later.
Yeah.
That and that deflected forward, give Debo a credit where he flipped it up into the air and Ronnie jumped up and got it again.
That's nice. That's nice of our captain to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you,
All right.
Brandon. You guys
Yeah.
have a great
You guys
Thank you,
later.
guys.
day.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody.
Same
Thank
to you.
you.